By the year 2000, the Sony PlayStation had established itself as the most respected platform for console role-playing games. Squaresoft, Enix, and Konami all contributed memorable entries including the Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and Suikoden titles. Not to be outdone, Capcom also brought its flagship RPG series to the system in the form of Breath of Fire 3. The game received a positive reception and praise from publications, prompting the company to develop a second Breath of Fire entry on the PlayStation, Breath of Fire 4. Interestingly enough, Breath of Fire 4 had a graphical presentation that looked quite a bit different from Breath of Fire 3, even though much of the same team worked on the game. Even though the title retains the isometric view, the overall aesthetic and sprites are a bit darker and give a more mature appearance. The world is rendered in 3D, while the characters themselves are 2D sprites. Normal enemies are also 2D sprites, but boss enemies are built from 3D polygons. This made them stand out, but it did create something of a visual disconnect. There's also a pretty awesome opening cinematic, which was a bit of a surprise given it was the first time the franchise ever did this. For combat, you still control 3 characters at a time, but there are several key differences in relation to the previous games. Breath of Fire 4 allows you to choose which characters perform actions in any order you wish. Additionally, the player is able to toggle between characters with no penalty at all, which provides an opportunity to conserve AP and utilize the talents of each. Ryu still has the ability to transform into dragons, but it works a bit differently in this one. Instead of combining dragon genes together to produce a wide array of forms like in Breath of Fire 3, you gain transformations in Breath of Fire 4 as a whole. The downside is that there's only 6 total transformations, and Ryu assumes the same appearance for all of them. They were really powerful, but I preferred the more customizable approach that Breath of Fire 3 offered. The biggest innovation of Breath of Fire 4 battles is definitely the combo system, which allows 2 or more abilities among multiple party members to be combined with each other for special bonuses or effects. You can string such combos together to create very powerful attacks, and the game successfully incentivized replay by encouraging the players to learn additional combos. Breath of Fire 4 features a unique story, but borrows heavily from various themes and characters from the previous games. It all starts when the winged Princess Nina and her friend Cray set out on a journey to find her lost sister, who went missing several weeks earlier. Their vehicle gets upended by a giant dragon in the desert, causing Nina to go searching for equipment needed for repairs. As she does so, she confronts the dragon who destroyed the ship, which shockingly transforms into a human boy. Unique to Breath of Fire 4, though, is a story that unfolds in parallel to Ryu's story. This features Fu Lu, an emperor god of sorts that awakens from his tomb after a deep century-spanning sleep. His tale involves his attempt to reclaim his empire, which has been overtaken by a rival faction. I won't get into exactly how, but both his and Ryu's stories are intertwined in several ways, and I really enjoyed how the narrative was presented in separate tales. In some ways, it reminded me a bit of the dynamic between Squall and Laguna in their respective stories in Final Fantasy VIII. I also liked the cast of characters, which incorporated some new archetypes, such as those of Cray and Urshan. For the most part, it wasn't just the same old characters rehashed or reskinned. There's also character-specific abilities too, which make each stand out from the others in ways similar to the previous games. As in Breath of Fire 3, there's also a master system where playable characters can gain stat increases and skills after fulfilling specific requirements. I think the most annoying aspect of this game is definitely the camera system. Though I do like the isometric view, there's only 4 camera angles that you can rotate through. This becomes an issue in areas where there's lots of vertical buildings and other objects that obstruct your view. In some places it's such that you'll probably be spending more time swinging the camera around than you do actually walking through the area. That's utterly frustrating. If you thought the camera system in Xenogears was annoying, you'll despise the camera in this one even more. Another thing that will come as a surprise to Breath of Fire fans is that there's no longer a world map, at least not in the same way it existed before. In this one, the world map consists of a linear set of locations you move through as automatic nodes, and it operates much like Super Mario World or Final Fantasy Tactics. I prefer the world map system of Breath of Fire 3, where there were no random encounters, but you could at least roam around. The soundtrack in Breath of Fire 4 was created by Yoshino Aoki, who is also behind the Breath of Fire 3 soundtrack. However, this one definitely adopts a different style than its predecessor. Breath of Fire 3's soundtrack was influenced by jazz and ragtime, but Breath of Fire 4 uses a more traditional formula. It's a bit darker with more strings, horns, and woodwinds. In my mind, Breath of Fire 4's soundtrack fits the type of game it is better than its predecessor, even though both are very good scores. I have to hand it to Aoki for showing her skills off with an alternative style, and her talent from multiple approaches is pretty impressive. Ultimately, Breath of Fire 4 was a title I liked, but didn't love. The camera system was a bit of a drag, and the dragon transformation wasn't as well done. Still, there are a lot of redeemable facets too. Combat was fluid, the swapping and combo system for battles added creative new dynamics, and the character animations were also very polished. I liked the way in which the story was presented, but the story itself wasn't as interesting as it could have been. The dialogue was more polished than any previous Breath of Fire title, which was definitely refreshing given the awkwardness of the text in some of the previous entries. If I had to choose which game was better between Breath of Fire 3 and Breath of Fire 4, I'd probably pick Breath of Fire 3 by a slight margin. Either way though, it's a must-play if you're a fan of the series, but if you don't like the Breath of Fire games, you probably won't like this one either. So what do you guys think? Was Breath of Fire 3 or Breath of Fire 4 better? Let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe for more retro content. Also, please join my Discord community linked in the description, and consider supporting my channel via YouTube's Join feature to receive member exclusives, such as advanced videos and complete video transcripts.